The beautiful Apache woman stood too tall among her people, and now they cast her out like morning shadow fleeing the sun. Toriel watched her tribe disappear into Devil's Canyon, their horses kicking up dust that settled on her like burial shroud. 6 feet of cursed height had sealed her fate. Chief Sitting Bull's words still echoed against the canyon walls. The lightning chose you, but it cursed us all. Her mother Pocahontas had turned away at the final moment, unable to watch her daughters. Banishment. The sacred totem lay shattered at Toriel's feet, knocked down by her ungodly stature during the harvest ceremony. 3 days before, she had entered the ceremonial circle like any other woman. The autumn ritual demanded perfect height alignment with the sacred marker. Toriel had tried to crouch, to diminish herself, but when the chanting reached its peak, she straightened instinctively. Her head towered above the totem. The entire tribe fell silent. Medicine Woman, Grandmother Willow, seized the moment like a hawk striking prey. She pointed one gnarled finger at Toriel and spoke the words that would doom her. This woman bears the lightning mark. When thunder struck her as a child, it gave her power over the hidden waters beneath our feet. She threatens the old ways. The revelation hit harder than any physical blow. Toriel's water-finding ability had always been her secret burden. As a child, she could sense underground streams, could lead the tribe to water when the desert turned cruel. She thought it was intuition. Now she understood it was something more dangerous. Her brother Geronimo had discovered her helping lost white travelers find water sources. The betrayal cut deep. 3 months ago, she had guided a dying settler family to a hidden spring. 2 weeks later, she had shown a lost cavalry unit the way to water. Each act of mercy had planted seeds of doubt in her brother's mind. The tribe feared she would eventually choose the white world over theirs. They were not wrong. Standing on the cliff edge, Toriel felt the weight of her exile settling into her bones. The desert stretched endlessly before her, broken only by distant mesas and the promise of slow death. She had water enough for 2 days, maybe 3 if she rationed carefully. Her supernatural height had saved her life once. Now it would likely end it. She descended into the wasteland as the sun reached its merciless peak. Each step took her further from everything she had ever known. The Apache way was to face death with dignity, but dignity meant little when you died alone. The first day passed in a haze of heat and memory. She found water by pressing her ear to the ground, listening for the whisper of underground streams. The skill that had damned her now kept her alive. She drank sparingly from a muddy seep beneath a cluster of rocks. The second day brought hallucinations. She saw her mother's face in every shadow, heard her father's voice in the wind. The desert played tricks on the dying, offering false hope and phantom comfort. She pressed on, following deer trails that led nowhere. By the 3rd day, her water was gone. Her lips cracked like dried earth. The sun felt like a weight pressing down on her skull. She stumbled more than walked, her unusual height making her ungainly in the broken terrain. The landscape began to change. Fences appeared in the distance, marking territory claimed by white settlers. Cattle grazed and scattered. Groups, their lowing carried on the hot wind. She had reached the edge of the ranching country. Toriel collapsed near a weathered fence post, her strength finally spent. The irony was not lost on her. She would die in sight of the world she had shown mercy to, the world that had cost her everything. The ground beneath her felt different. Even through her delirium, she could sense water running deep below. A strong source, enough to sustain life. Her gift whispered of salvation just beyond reach. Darkness crept in from the edges of her vision. The desert would claim her after all. She had been too tall for her own people, too different to survive their judgment. Now she would become part of the dust and stones, her story ending where it began. In the distance, she heard the sound of approaching horses. White voices called out in alarm. Strong hands lifted her from the dirt. Through her fevered haze, She saw a weathered face framed by graying hair, eyes that held unexpected kindness. The man spoke words she barely understood, his voice gentle despite the harsh land that had shaped him. He cradled her unusual height without fear, as if her difference meant nothing to him. Water touched her lips, sweet and cool as mountain. Snow. The beautiful Apache had been exiled for being too tall. Now a rancher offered his hand to pull her back from the edge of forever. Dutch van der Linde carried the unconscious Apache woman into his ranch house, her unusual height making. Her legs dangled past his arms. His foreman, Micah Bell, stood in the doorway, face twisted with disapproval. The other ranch hands gathered at a distance, whispering among themselves about the wisdom of harboring an Indian. Dutch laid her on the spare bed in the back room, noting how her frame barely fit the narrow mattress. Her breathing was shallow but steady. He had found many things dying in the desert over the years. Most he buried, this one he would try to save. Micah followed him to the kitchen, his spurs clicking against the wooden floor. "You know what this means, Dutch. Government finds out you got an Apache here. They'll take everything. The ranch, the cattle, probably throw you in prison too." Dutch filled a basin with cool water, his movements deliberate and calm. The woman had been dying. That made the choice simple. He returned to the back room and began cleaning the dust from her face with gentle strokes. Her skin was sun-darkened and cracked, but beneath the desert's punishment, she was beautiful. She woke on the second day, her dark eyes opening slowly to take in the unfamiliar surroundings. Dutch sat beside the bed, mending a bridle with practiced hands. He looked up when she stirred, setting aside his work. "You're safe here." His voice carried the weight of a promise. The woman studied his weathered face, searching for deception. Finding none, she attempted to sit up. Her height made the movement awkward in the small space. Dutch stood and offered his hand. She hesitated, then accepted the help. Standing, she towered over him by several inches. Neither of them remarked on it. He led her to the kitchen table and placed a bowl of stew before her. She ate slowly, her eyes never leaving his face. The ranch hands watched through the windows as Dutch showed her on the property. Her long stride matched his horse's gait as they toured the boundaries. She examined the cattle with intelligent eyes, noting their condition and the sparse grass they grazed. When they reached the well, she knelt and pressed her ear to the ground. Dutch watched her strange behavior with growing interest. The woman stood and shook her head, pointing west toward the hills. The well was failing. The cattle were suffering. His ranch was slowly dying of thirst, and somehow she knew. That evening, Micah cornered Dutch in the barn. "She's gotta go, Dutch. Boys are spooked. Indians got ways of knowing things they shouldn't. Maybe she's scouting for a war party." Dutch continued brushing down his horse, each stroke measured and methodical. The woman had shown no signs of hostility. If anything, she seemed grateful for his kindness. He had seen something familiar in her eyes during those first moments of consciousness. The look of someone who had lost everything. His own loss lived in the empty spaces of the ranch house. Abigail's clothes still hung in the wardrobe. Her books remained stacked on the knitstand. 6 months since the Apache raid that took her life, and he still set 2 plates at dinner before remembering. The irony was not lost on him. He was sheltering one of the people who had destroyed his happiness. Yet when he looked at the tall Apache woman, he saw only another soul cast out by circumstances beyond her control. Agent Milton arrived 3 days later, his federal badge gleaming in the morning sun. He dismounted with the careful precision of a man who expected trouble. Dutch met him on the porch, coffee cup in hand. Milton's pale eyes swept the ranch, cataloging details. "I'm here about reports of Apache activity in the area. Government's cracking down on harboring fugitives. Any Indians found on white property means immediate seizure of assets." Dutch sipped his coffee, his expression neutral. Haven't seen any Indians around here, Agent. Just trying to keep my cattle alive in this drought. The woman watched from the barn, her tall frame partially hidden behind the door. Milton's gaze lingered on the building, but he made no move to investigate. He remounted his horse and tipped his hat. Just remember, Dutch, the new policy is zero tolerance. Any Apache found on your land, and we relocate every Indian in the territory to the reservation. That's hundreds of innocent people paying for one man's mistake. After Milton rode away, Dutch found the woman by the failing well. She knelt again, her ear pressed to the dry earth. This time, she stood and walked 50 yards west, repeating the ritual. At the third location, she nodded and looked at him with certainty. That night, Dutch's ranch hands dug where she had indicated. At dawn, clear water bubbled up from the new well. The men stared at the Apache woman with a mixture of awe and fear. She had found water where their divining rods had failed. Dutch understood then why she had been cast out. Power like hers would threaten any established order. Her own people had feared what she could do. Now his men looked at her with the same unease. The cattle began to recover within days. The woman worked alongside the ranch hands, her height allowing her to reach places others could not. She mended fences, tended wounds, and guided lost calves back to the herd. Her presence became as natural as sunrise. In the evenings, she sat on the porch with Dutch watching the sun disappear behind the mountains. Neither spoke much, but the silence held comfort. Two broken people finding peace in shared solitude. The first sign of trouble came with the missing cattle. 3 head vanished from the north pasture, their tracks leading toward the Mexican border. Dutch organized a search party, but they found only cold trails and empty desert. More cattle disappeared over the following weeks. The pattern suggested organized rustling, not random theft. Someone was targeting his herd with military precision. Dutch began to suspect the raids were connected to his Apache guest. The tall woman sensed his growing suspicion. She met his questioning gaze with steady eyes, neither confirming nor denying his fears. Her silence spoke volumes. In the distance, storm clouds gathered over the mountains, promising either salvation or destruction. The cattle raids intensified as autumn deepened. Dutch lost 12 head in a single night. Their tracks leading toward the border were Mexican. Bandits operated with impunity. Toriel studied the hoofprints with growing unease, recognizing patterns that chilled her blood. Dutch found her at the kitchen table that evening, her long fingers tracing circles in spilled flour. The lamplight cast shadows across her face, revealing worry lines that had not been there weeks before. He set down his coffee and waited for her to speak. She looked up, her dark eyes holding secrets he could not read. The raiders know Apache ways. They move at night, strike silently, leave no witnesses. Her voice carried the weight of unwanted knowledge. The confession hung between them like smoke. Dutch had suspected Apache involvement, but hearing it confirmed felt different. His mind traveled to Abigail's grave, to the morning he found her body in the burned remains of their neighbor's cabin. The official report blamed renegade Apaches. Now one sat at his table, sharing his food and his growing affection. Toriel stood and walked to the window, her height making her silhouette imposing against the glass. The moon was new darkness, perfect for raiders. She pressed her palm against the cool pane, her breath fogging the surface. Dutch joined her, standing close enough to feel the warmth radiating from her skin. Despite everything, despite the raids and the suspicion, he felt drawn to her strength. She had saved his ranch with her gift. Now she might destroy it with her past. The next morning brought news that changed everything. A neighbor rode in with word that Mexican bandits led by Javier Escuela were recruiting Apache guides. The partnership explained the raid's success and their intimate knowledge of local terrain. Dutch saddled his horse and rode to the northern boundary where the latest theft had occurred. Toriel followed on foot, her long strides keeping pace with his mount. At the sight, she knelt and examined the ground with professional thoroughness. The tracks told a story she did not want to read. Mixed among the cattle prints were moccasin marks she recognized. Her brother Geronimo's distinctive gait, the way he favored his left foot after an old injury. The realization hit her like a physical blow. Dutch dismounted and stood beside her, reading the anguish in her posture. He had seen that look before, in his own mirror after Abigail's death. The moment when you discover that someone you love has become someone you cannot forgive. That evening, Dutch made his decision. He found Toriel mending harness in the barn, her skilled hands working leather with practiced efficiency. The sunset painted her skin golden, and he realized how beautiful she had become to him. He knelt beside her, taking her hands in his calloused palms. The words came slowly, weighted with months of growing affection. I want you to stay. Not just until the trouble passes, forever. Her hands stilled in his grip. The proposal hung in the air between them, fragile as morning frost. She had never expected kindness from the white world, much less love. The offer both thrilled and terrified her. Dutch continued, his voice rough with emotion. Marry me. We'll face whatever comes together. Toriel pulled away, standing to pace the narrow confines of the barn. Her height made the space seem smaller, more confining. The weight of her secrets pressed down on her shoulders. She turned to face him, her expression carved from stone. There are things about me you do not know. Things that would make you take back those words. Dutch stood, his eyes never leaving hers. The past is dust. What matters is who you are now. The sound of approaching horses interrupted them. Toriel moved to the barn door, her body tensing with recognition. In the growing darkness she could make out familiar silhouettes. Her brother had come for her. Geronimo dismounted near the corral, his movements fluid and silent. Even in the dim light, his resemblance to Toriel was unmistakable. The same height, the same proud bearing, the same dark eyes now filled with dangerous purpose. Dutch stepped protectively in front of Toriel, his hand resting on his sidearm. The gesture was instinctive, born from months of caring for her. But Geronimo's attention was fixed solely on his sister. The Apache warriors spoke in their native tongue, his words sharp with accusation. Toriel responded in kind, her voice rising with each exchange. Dutch could not understand the language, but the tone was clear. This was not a reunion. Geronimo's revelation came in broken English, meant for Dutch to hear. My sister was not exiled for being too tall. She was sent to spy on you. To learn your weaknesses so we could destroy your ranch from within. The words hit Dutch like physical blows. Every kindness he had shown, every moment of growing trust, had been built on deception. He looked at Toriel, searching her face for denial. She met his gaze without flinching, her expression confirming what he feared most. The exile had been planned. Her collapse at his fence line had been calculated. Everything between them was a lie. Geronimo continued, his voice cutting through the night air. She was supposed to help us raid your cattle, guide us to your weakness. Instead, she used her gift to help you. Now she has forgotten her true purpose. Dutch felt the ground shifting beneath his feet. The woman he had fallen in love with was not who he thought she was. The Apache who had saved his ranch had been sent to destroy it. The cruel irony was that she had succeeded in a way none of them expected. Toriel finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I tried to tell you. There were things you did not know. Geronimo moved closer, his hand resting on his knife hilt. The exile ends now, sister. You will help us finish what we started. Or I will tell him about his wife. The threat hung in the air like poison. Dutch saw Toriel's face go pale, saw her hands tremble for the first time since he had known her. Whatever secret Geronimo held, it was worse than anything yet revealed. The night wind picked up, carrying the scent of distant storms. In the darkness beyond the barn, Dutch could make out other figures. Geronimo had not come alone. The ranch was surrounded, and the woman he loved was at the center of it all. Toriel looked between the two men, her heart torn between worlds. The brother who had orchestrated her exile now demanded her loyalty. The man who had offered her love deserved the truth. Neither choice would leave her whole. Toriel stepped between her brother and Dutch, her tall frame casting shadows in the lamplight. Geronimo's threat about Abigail hung in the air like a loaded gun. She could see Dutch's face hardening, preparing for the worst revelation yet. The sound of approaching riders broke the tension. Agent Milton appeared in the darkness, flanked by federal marshals. Their badges caught the moonlight as they dismounted, weapons drawn. The convergence was no coincidence. Milton's voice cut through the night. Dutch van der Linde, you're harboring a known Apache fugitive. Step away from the Indian woman. Micah Bell emerged from the ranch house, his timing too perfect to be accidental. He had been watching, waiting for this moment. His betrayal was complete, his loyalty sold to the highest bidder. Geronimo melted back into the shadows, his warriors following suit. They had not come to fight the federal government. This was about reclaiming his sister, not starting a war. Dutch found himself trapped between three forces. The government demanded Toriel's surrender. Her brother wanted her cooperation. She stood at the center, torn between worlds that would never accept her. Toriel made her choice in that instant of chaos. She pressed her ear to the ground, feeling for the underground streams that ran beneath the ranch. Her gift had never been stronger, fueled by desperation and love. The earth trembled beneath her touch. Water responded to her call, rising from deep aquifers that had slept for decades. The ground began to soften around the new well, then spread outward in widening circles. Milton stepped forward, his authority absolute in his own mind. By order of the federal government, this woman is under arrest. Any resistance will result in the seizure of this property and the relocation of all Indians in the territory. Dutch moved to stand beside Toriel, his decision made. The woman had lied to him, but she had also saved his ranch. More than that, she had shown him how to hope again after Abigail's death. Geronimo's voice emerged from the darkness, speaking to his sister in Apache. His words carried old pain and new understanding. He had seen her choice, seen how she stood with the white rancher despite everything. The water continued to rise, turning dust to mud, then mud to flowing streams. Toriel's supernatural ability was reshaping the landscape, creating barriers where none had existed. The convergence was breaking apart as surely as the ground beneath their feet. Agent Milton found his horse knee-deep in rising water, his authority dissolving in the face of something beyond his understanding. His marshals retreated to higher ground, their arrest plans washed away by an impossible flood. Dutch watched in amazement as Toriel's gift transformed his ranch. She was not just finding water now. She was calling it forth, bending it to her will, using it to save them all. Micah Bell's betrayal backfired as the flooding separated him from the federal agents. He stood alone in the rising water, his schemes drowning in the deluge he had never anticipated. In the chaos, Geronimo approached his sister one final time. His words were soft now, filled with something approaching respect. He had underestimated her power, her ability to choose her own path between two worlds. Toriel turned to face her brother, her height making her imposing even in the shifting water. She spoke in Apache, her words carrying finality. She would not return to the tribe. She would not help him wage war against innocent people. But neither would she betray him to the authorities. Geronimo nodded, understanding passing between them. He had come to reclaim a weapon. Instead, he found a sister who had become something greater than either of their worlds could contain. The Apache warrior melted back into the night, taking his men with him. The war he had planned was ending before it could begin. His sister had found a different way, a path that honored both her heritage and her chosen future. Agent Milton retreated with his marshals, their federal authority useless against forces they could not comprehend. The arrest would have to wait. For another day, another opportunity that might never come. Dutch stood in the rising water beside Toriel, watching their enemies disperse. The flood was already beginning to recede, channeled by her will into irrigation ditches that would feed his land for years to come. In the aftermath, they faced each other across the muddy ground. The lies between them had been exposed, but so had something deeper. Love built on deception could still become love built on truth. Toriel's confession came slowly, each word weighted with pain. Her brother had killed Abigail during a raid on the neighboring ranch. The murder was meant to drive Dutch to hatred, to make him an enemy of all Apache people. Dutch absorbed the revelation without flinching. He had suspected as much when he saw the pattern in the raids. The confirmation hurt, but it did not change how he felt about the woman before him. The choice was his now. He could give in to hatred, let the cycle of violence continue. Or he could choose the harder path, the one that led away from vengeance towards something resembling peace. He extended his hand to Toriel, palm up in the lamplight. The gesture was simple, but it carried the weight of forgiveness. She had been sent to destroy him. Instead, she had saved him in ways neither of them had expected. The weeks that followed brought profound changes. Dutch lost his government contracts for harboring an Apache fugitive, but his ranch survived. Toriel's flood had created the most fertile land in the territory. They married in a simple ceremony witnessed by the ranch hands who had come to respect her. No preacher would perform the service, so they spoke their vows beneath the open sky, with only the stars as witnesses. The trading post they established became neutral ground where Apache and white settlers could meet safely. Toriel's gift for finding water made her valuable to both communities, her curse transformed into blessing. Word came months later that Geronimo had ended his war against the settlers. He sent no explanation, but Toriel understood. Her choice had shown him another way, a path that led away from endless violence. The beautiful Apache woman had been exiled for being too tall. Now she stood as a bridge between worlds, her height a symbol of her ability to see beyond the hatred that divided her peoples. Dutch watched her teach his ranch hands to read the signs of underground water, passing on knowledge that would outlive them both. She had found her purpose at last, not as a member of either world, but as the connection between them. In the evenings, they sat on their porch and watched the sunset paint the mountains red. Two broken people had found wholeness in each other, their love a small victory against the cruelty of a divided land. The rancher had given the exiled Apache his hand. In return, she had given him a future worth believing in. And that is all to the story for now. Please let me know where you are tuning in from. Perhaps we will create a story there. Consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. And if you enjoy our content, click this video on your screen. I promise you, it's worth watching. See you tomorrow.